They say opposites attract, but what happens when centuries attract? When ink meets electric stage light? When Shakespeare meets Madonna, one wrote, "To be or not to be." The other sang, like a virgin, touched for the very first time. And in their own languages, they were asking the same question. What does it mean to be real? If the brain is a stage, then identity is the play. Neuroscience has proven it. The self is not fixed, it's performed. Your neural pathways change every time you choose to show up differently. Every act of courage rewires you. Every moment of truth redefines you. Madonna reinvented herself 1,000 times, not to escape who she was, but to test how far authenticity could go before society flinched. She turned shame into art, rebellion into prayer. Her evolution wasn't vanity, it was biology in motion, neuroplasticity wearing heels. Shakespeare, on the other hand, knew that the masks were never the problem. The tragedy was believing you are the mask. He wrote about love, madness, betrayal, but beneath every verse, he was dissecting consciousness. He was mapping the psyche long before Freud had a couch. Now imagine them sitting face to face, a pop icon and a poet. One whispering about freedom through rhythm, the other exposing illusion through rhyme. Two different centuries, one nervous system, humanity. Madonna would tease, "You built the stage." "Will, I just turned on the lights." And he'd smile, "Aye, but even light creates shadows." That's the paradox of awakening. The brighter you become, the clearer you see what still needs healing. The ego doesn't die. It learns to serve. It becomes the stagehand, not the star. Modern psychology calls it integration. Ancient wisdom called it wholeness. And both Madonna and Shakespeare embodied it through different tools. Same consciousness, because in the end, the mind is not a cage, it's a script. And you, like them, have the power to rewrite it. Maybe you've played so many roles. The perfect one, the strong one, the silent one, that you've forgotten who was under all the makeup. Maybe you've mistaken performance for purpose. But what if the whole journey is about remembering that the stage was yours all along? Madonna broke the rules of gender, art, and religion, not because she wanted to shock the world, but because she refused to live in someone else's script. And Shakespeare, centuries before her, warned us, God has given you one face, and you make yourself another. They both knew what most people still fear to admit. Freedom is terrifying, because when you strip away every label, you meet the raw, vibrating truth beneath. The you that cannot be explained, only experienced. And here's the secret most never realize. Your brain listens to your beliefs. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, your neurons light up like front row seats to your own awakening. So maybe Madonna and Shakespeare aren't opposites after all. Maybe they are two hemispheres of the same awakening mind, one singing it, the other scripting it. And if they met today, I think they'd agree on one thing. The real revolution isn't loud. It's silent, internal, electric. The moment you stop performing for the world and finally become yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's what they've been trying to tell us all along. That being awake isn't mystical. It's biological. It's art. It's rebellion. It's remembering. So the question isn't to be or not to be. The question is, are you ready to stop pretending? Because the next act is yours. The next act is yours. But before the spotlight hits, before the applause and the masks, let's be honest, you've been acting for so long, you forgot who wrote your lines. Every day you wake up inside a script you didn't choose. A routine that feels rehearsed. A rhythm that isn't yours. And somewhere between what you do and why you do it, you lost the melody of your own becoming. That's where Shakespeare and Madonna reappear. Not as historical icons, but as frequencies in the same spectrum of awakening. Because both were alchemists of identity. Both understood that life isn't about discovering who you are. It's about creating it. Madonna did it with rhythm and rebellion. Shakespeare did it with words and wonder. But both said the same thing. You are allowed to evolve. And that truth? It's electric. Because every time you change, your brain changes too. Your neurons reshape themselves around new stories. New possibilities, new beliefs. That's not magic, that's neuroplasticity in motion. And it's the most rebellious thing you can do in a world addicted to repetition. Think about it. Madonna walked onto a world that told women what to be, how to move, how to stay small. And she said no. She turned her body into language, her image into philosophy. She was never just performing, she was becoming. Every reinvention was a declaration of freedom. I won't be what you expect. And that kind of authenticity burns systems from the inside out. Shakespeare knew that rebellion too, but his battlefield was the mind. Through his characters, he explored the human psyche before psychology even had a name. He mapped jealousy, power, guilt, love, not as sins, but as dimensions of being. He turned human chaos into poetry. He made our contradictions divine. And if you listen closely, both of them, Madonna and Shakespeare, who were trying to teach you one thing, that every soul is music, every emotion, a note of truth, and every belief is a costume you can choose to remove. Now ask yourself, who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when you stop performing? That silence between thoughts, that raw pulse of being. That's where awakening begins. Your nervous system has memory, you know. It remembers applause, rejection, heartbreak, but it also remembers truth. When you're aligned with your essence, your body relaxes. When you betray yourself, it tightens, as if your cells themselves are whispering, "This isn't us." Your body is your first oracle, and your discomfort is often your soul asking for honesty. That's what Madonna called the call within, and what Shakespeare described as the undiscovered country. Both were talking about the same thing, that place beyond logic where your higher self lives. Modern neuroscience calls it coherence. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in the same frequency. Your heart literally creates a magnetic field that influences your brain. When you feel love, gratitude, or awe, your cells synchronize, your perception widens, and the universe feels less like chaos and more like a mirror. You see, awakening isn't about light beams and enlightenment posters. It's about honesty. It's about noticing when your truth no longer fits in your life. It's about saying no more to the old script. Even when your voice shakes, Madonna reinvented herself over and over because she understood this secret. If your story doesn't evolve, it becomes a cage. Shakespeare whispered the same lesson through Hamlet's doubt, through Juliet's defiance, through Lear's madness. That awareness often feels like breaking, because it is. You're breaking the illusion of permanence, but breakage isn't the end. It's the sound of expansion. Look at your own life. How many times have you mistaken comfort for peace? How many times have you stayed quiet just to belong? And how many times has silence felt heavier than truth? That's the paradox of awakening. You outgrow what once kept you safe. The cocoon becomes too tight. The mask begins to itch. And then, one day, the pain of pretending outweighs the fear of changing. That's the moment your soul says, enough. And if you listen, really listen, you'll hear Madonna in the background, whispering, express yourself. You'll hear Shakespeare answering softly, to thine own self be true. They were never talking to the crowd. They were talking to the quiet ones, the ones on the edge of becoming, the ones ready to remember. Because truth doesn't shout, it hums. It starts as a small vibration in the gut, a tremor behind the ribs. You feel it before you understand it. And that's the language of evolution. The mind resists at first. It clings to what it knows. But your heart is ancient. It remembers the freedom of stars. And when you finally follow it, you begin to live like art. Raw, imperfect, holy. That's what Madonna did. That's what Shakespeare wrote. And that's what your own awakening is asking of you. To stop being a spectator of your life. To stop waiting for permission. To live unscripted. To be the author and the character at once. Because, truthfully, no one's coming to hand you authenticity. You have to claim it. You have to burn for it. You have to say, this is who I am. And if it costs me comfort, so be it. And here's the miracle. The moment you choose truth over approval, your energy changes. You vibrate differently. People sense it before they understand it. Because authenticity has a frequency, and it's contagious. This is how consciousness spreads. Not through preaching, but through embodiment. Through one soul choosing to shine. Through one person daring to be real in a world addicted to imitation. Madonna once said she felt most alive when people misunderstood her, because that meant she was creating something new. You don't get clarity from being understood. You get clarity from being authentic. And Shakespeare would have applauded that, because every truth-teller in his plays stood alone before they stood remembered. Maybe that's what being human really means, to stand alone for a moment, so you can stand aligned forever. The mind fears solitude, but solitude is where the signal clears. It's where you tune into the frequency of your soul without interference. And when that happens, when your heart and brain sync, you become unstoppable. You stop repeating pain. You stop chasing validation. You stop running from silence. You become what Madonna sang and Shakespeare wrote, a conscious being in motion, not seeking love but radiating it. That's awakening. It's messy, electric, beautiful. It's Madonna dancing barefoot in her living room at 3 a.m. It's Shakespeare staring into candlelight, realizing the candle was him all along. It's you, trembling, laughing, crying, finally realizing that everything you were searching for was never outside. And here's the truth, maybe the one no one told you. You're not broken, you're just awakening. And awakening feels like chaos until it becomes coherence. So tonight, when your mind replays the old scenes, the rejections, the mistakes, the not enoughs, remember, that's just your nervous system clinging to the familiar. You can thank it, you can release it, you can tell it, we're safe now. Because safety isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of truth. And truth, when lived, heals. So take a breath, right now. Feel the air enter your body, the quiet proof that you're still here, still evolving, still writing. You are both the poem and the poet, the song and the silence, the dancer and the divine. And as the light dims on this act, somewhere between Shakespeare's ink and Madonna's heartbeat, there's a space made for you to step in, to speak your line, to live your rhythm, to awaken. Because maybe the real masterpiece was never theirs. Maybe it's you. Imagine this. Madonna sits on the edge of an empty stage, her hands still glittering with the echoes of another life. And somewhere, in the soft corners of eternity, Shakespeare walks toward her, not as a ghost, but as a mirror. Two creators, two rebels of the soul, two different centuries, one single purpose. To remind you what it means to be alive. He looks at her and smiles, that knowing smile, as if he had written her centuries before she was born. She laughs wild and free, the way only someone who's been burned by fame and found God in the ashes can. He asks, "Tell me, lady of rhythm, what is truth in your world of noise?" And she answers, "Truth is what I feel when I stop performing." Silence. For a moment, even the stars hold their breath, because that's it. That's the secret both have been chasing through time, to live without the mask, to become the melody beneath the noise. And maybe that's what your soul has been craving too, to stop being the echo and start being the source, you see. Both of them learned that art is just a mirror of awakening. Madonna called it reinvention, Shakespeare called it rebirth, neuroscientists call it neurogenesis. But they were all talking about the same thing, the sacred capacity of your being to evolve endlessly. You are wired for transformation. Every time you forgive, neurons reconnect. Every time you choose love instead of fear, your brain rewrites its map of reality. You literally sculpt your soul through attention. And that's the divine rehearsal of existence. To live as if every breath were a new line in your play. Because it is. So maybe you don't need to understand everything. Maybe you just need to feel, because feeling is the language the divine uses to communicate. When you feel deeply, you are praying without words. Shakespeare understood this when he wrote about love that transcends reason. Madonna lived it when she turned heartbreak into melody. And you are living it every time you dare to be real. You are not just watching their story. You are the continuation of it. You are the soul that came after the curtain fell, picking up the script they left unfinished. The awakening they started, it's now in you. Because the truth is, every time you express yourself fearlessly, Shakespeare writes through you. Every time you forgive yourself, Madonna dances through you. Every time you look at your life and whisper, "This is not the end," the universe applauds. The play never ended. It just changed dimensions. Maybe heaven isn't above us. Maybe it's the moment you choose authenticity over approval. Maybe enlightenment is not a light that descends, but a frequency that rises inside you when you finally remember who you are. And maybe the divine was never a figure outside you, but a rhythm that has been waiting for you to move in sync. Because when the human and the divine meet, in tears, in laughter, in silence, that's when creation recognizes itself. That's awakening. That's the standing ovation your soul has been waiting for. So tonight, as the lights of your own story begin to dim and the echoes of old identities fade into the background, listen closely. You might hear Shakespeare whispering, "Be not afraid of greatness," and Madonna humming, "Life is a mystery, everyone must stand alone." And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize they were both saying the same thing. That love, in all its forms, is the only truth that survives the stage. Because in the end, everything you do, every word, every heartbeat, is part of one infinite conversation between you and the universe, between your soul and the source, between the human and the divine. So live like art, write like truth, dance like prayer. And if the world doesn't understand you, smile, because maybe you weren't meant to fit in their play. You were meant to write a new one where authenticity is the only religion. One where silence is sacred. One where love is not something you find, it's something you remember. And when the final act comes, when the curtain falls and the applause fades, there will be no fear, because you will know you didn't perform life. You lived it, and somewhere in that unseen realm, where frequencies meet and souls recognize each other, Madonna and Shakespeare will smile, not as icons, but as witnesses, watching another awakened one take the stage. Maybe awakening was never about escaping life, but about feeling everything so deeply that even silence starts to speak back to you. There's a moment when that silence finally speaks, when the pain stops asking why and starts whispering now. And that's where rebirth happens, not in temples, not in heavens, but inside you. You were never broken, just becoming, because you are not your past, not your mistakes. You are the artist sculpting them into meaning. You are the rhythm, the word, the pulse between heartbeats. So tonight, don't try to be perfect, be real. Because the universe doesn't respond to performance, it responds to vibration. And when you choose truth, you become untouchable, unstoppable, unforgettable. This is your stage, your frequency, your rebirth. And this right here is your masterpiece. Human wave, where souls remember their light and consciousness remembers it was never asleep.